without further ado, you know the story, you know the words, scream it out loud. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Corey.
Hi, Corey.
And I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. She said, so hit the cymbal with your left foot. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. She said, so hit the tambourine with your right foot. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. She said, so hit the drum with your left hand. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. She said, so hit the blocks with your right hand. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. She said, so hit the crasher with your right hand. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. She said, so hit the bells with your right hand. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, nah. Then hit the shakers with your left hand. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, yeah. Then please go a little faster. That's right, Oren. Here we go. You ready? Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. I have a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. One day my boss said to me, she said, Corey. I said, yeah. Are you busy? I said, yeah. Then please go a little faster. Hi, my name is Corey, and I work in a drum factory. Yes. Yes, I am busy. Oh, you did it, Oren. Oh. Hi, Zoe. Woo! Okay. Well, I know you guys know that story. For those of you who are, well, I think everyone's watched before. But in case not, my name is Corey. I do have 2 kids. They're over there. I do have a wife. She's over there.
Hi.
And a dog who for once is not actually here, which is weird because she's normally making like cameos in the screen. But I don't actually work in a drum factory. You got to see the drum factory last week. It is my garage where I come up with all these cool stories. So as I mentioned today, I wanted to play 2 stories that you guys know and then read you a third and then start playing around with some instruments and talking about how I come up with some of that stuff. But this is for Weber's benefit and Greta's because I know they're really going to like this. So I play percussion instruments, and everything you see in here today is a percussion instrument, right? Because of the magic stick. You guys remember the magic stick?
The magic stick goes up.
It goes up,
Then down.
then down, and then you get sound. Anything you hit with something else to make a sound is a percussion instrument. So the blocks, percussion instrument, the bells, percussion instrument, the table, percussion instrument, the wall, percussion instrument, the fish tank, percussion instrument, and here we go, my head. Ooh, definitely a percussion instrument. But I don't just play the instruments, as you heard in Drum Factory. I tell stories while playing them. And that's what makes it something I call percussive storytelling. So as we go today, please send questions. My email and phone number are posted below. You can also send jokes. That's been the most popular thing the last number of weeks, people sending in jokes. So questions, jokes, comments. Yeah. Does anyone get this joke right here? Anyone?
Cowbell.
Cowbell. Get it? Cow?
Cowbell.
No. Cow. No. Wow, that cow's angry today. Yes, I am. Ah! Hey, what did I ever do to you? They're having a fight. I love squeaky toys. So a couple more jokes before I move on. What's a bee's favorite toy?
I don't know.
A frisbee. Ah. Where do cows go to dance? This is so good.
I don't know.
This is a good one. Where do cows go dance? Think fancy party. They go to a
Musical.
meatball. A musical? That's good. Warren said they musical. That's pretty good. Oh, good question. What about your body? Can your body be a percussion instrument? Yes. In fact, I have performed a couple pieces just for your body, using sounds and your voice to make the actual noise for the music part. Interesting pieces. Not exactly kid pieces, but you know. Another question, is it easier or harder to work with an audience? Ah, you mean like a big audience compared to a small one? That is a really good question. It really doesn't matter so much. I think the biggest I've done live at one time was somewhere around 800 or 900 kids. And that was just as basically the same as having 20 or 30. I will say that the setting does matter. If I'm at school or if I'm at a library or if I'm at a hospital or a boys and girls club, the different settings matter depending on time of day and also teachers versus parents and that whole dynamic, if you will. But I wanted to move on to this next story here. Keep those questions and jokes coming too. Weber, I'm sure you have some jokes. Come on, Weber. Come on, buddy. I know you got jokes. Hey, what did the chicken say to Oren?
I don't know.
Oh, watch out! What did the cow say to Zoe? Watch out! Hey, she caught him. Don't throw him back. This next story is called The Turnip. And I know I've played this one before, but it's a great story because of its use of the leitmotifs. And if you guys remember the leitmotifs, they are sounds that stand for things in the story. Oh my gosh, there's a chicken eating a grape right now. My family is the worst audience ever. They just won't stop talking. Can you believe this? Okay, you got to come show this. This is so awesome. And I'm joking. They're great. This is like a slap happy day. Yep, that is a chicken who is now eating a grape. Oh my God. Oh, nice. The grape has been eaten. We got the peanut gallery over here. All right, so the turnip. You guys ready for the turnip? Okay, here we go. Once upon a time, an old man planted a turnip seed and said, grow, grow, little turnip, grow sweet. Grow, grow, little turnip, grow strong. a turnip did grow up sweet, strong, big, enormous. Then, one day, the old man went to pull the turnip up. And he pulled and pulled and pulled again, but couldn't pull the turnip up. So he called the old woman. And the old man pulled the turnip. The old woman pulled the old man. They pulled and pulled and pulled, but couldn't pull the turnip. So the old woman called her big, strong grandson. And the old man pulled the turnip. The old woman pulled the old man. They pulled and pulled and pulled, but couldn't pull the turnip up. So the grandson called his dog. And the old man pulled the turnip. The old man pulled the old man. The grandson pulled the old woman. The dog pulled the grandson. They pulled and pulled and pulled and couldn't pull the turnip up. So the dog pulled the
Cat?
yes, cats.
Whatever.
And the old man pulled the turnip. The old woman pulled the old man. The grandson pulled the old woman. The dog pulled the grandson. The cat pulled the dog. They pulled and pulled and pulled and couldn't pull the turnip up, so finally the cat decided to call the littlest, tiniest hamster. Mouse! What'd you call him for, said the old man. Surely he can't help but send the big, strong grandson. But they decided to try anyway. And you. And the old man pulled the turnip. The old woman pulled the old man. The grandson pulled the old woman. The dog pulled the grandson. The cat pulled the dog. The mouse pulled the cat. They pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled until finally the turnip popped up at last. The moral of the story: sometimes even the strongest need the help of the smallest. The end. All right. There you go. My peanut gallery was cracking me up over here. Man, that chicken was like eating all these grapes. And it was so funny. So there is the turnip. I'm going to tell you these instruments. Again, for those of you just joining us, or those of you who have tuned in before, these are bells that come from cows. What are they called, Lauren?
Cowbells.
Cowbells.
Chicken bells.
These are, yeah, they're not chicken bells. That's right. If they were
Metal.
chicken wings, they'd be made out of chicken.
Metal.
And these are blocks of wood, otherwise known as wood blocks. We have a turnip, which is a shaker, an old bell that has very nice resonance. If you remember from a few weeks ago, resonance is how long it sounds. We have the mouse, a tiny wood block, and stick, bell, and a ratchet, tambourine, and my favorite gong, the opera gong. Weber and Greta, you need matching ones. Yeah, and then Edley, you can get the biggest one. So there's the Turnip and Drum Factory. Just wanted to play those stories for you. Did some fun percussive storytelling today because the next thing I'm going to do is actually read you a story. Before we get to that, I want to do some more questions and, of course, a couple jokes. A few different people said hi to Oren. That's cool. Oren made his little appearance with the chicken. And they're like, hi, Oren! The kids are hitting themselves and laughing hysterically. You're welcome back. I got the kids to hit themselves in the head. Audience, meaning through the screen. Yeah, live audience all the way. So much easier. Not even easier. It's just as a performer, I get my energy from the audience, meaning seeing all the people jumping around, laughing, even misbehaving. You know, a lot of kids are just, but there's an energy to that. And so as a performer, I feed off of that energy and it makes me go kookier and crazier and also being able to live in the moment. And so what that means is some of my stories, for example, the Turnip, you know, where I go, and that's a moment where hundreds of kids are hanging on the edge of their seats waiting for me to go, and what's fun about that is I can really mess with them, and then sometimes they start yelling at me and laughing, and it's a fun moment as a group. So to do that through a computer is difficult, but that's why I've had Oren here every week to be my Ed McMahon. All right, a joke, then a story. All right, guys, what did the bird wear to the fancy ball?
I don't know.
A tuxedo. Tuxedo? Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. What kind of tree has the most bark? Very good. Ailey's got it. A dogwood tree. Bark. It's a dog. What is a wolf's favorite treat?
I don't know.
This one is in honor of Grampy.
I don't know.
What's a wolf's favorite treat?
I don't know.
Ribs? No. That's good. Pigs in a blanket. Yeah.
Pigs in a blanket.
All right, guys. It is time for me to read you a story. And this story comes to you. It's actually an original story, meaning I wrote this one all on my own. It's not a folktale. It's called Stewie the Tui. And a tui bird is a bird from New Zealand that can imitate almost any sound. It has 2 voice boxes, in fact, to allow it to do that. So it's been known to unlock cars and other devices because it can imitate the sound of the codes. And they're pretty cool birds. So I wrote this story about a bird named Stewie who lives above this girl's house, and the girl's named Naomi. And there's been adventures. And I don't have music for this yet, but first I want to read you the story, and then I'm going to see about adding some sounds. Stewie was a bright blue tui bird from New Zealand who lived in a broadleaf tree high above the house where a young girl named Naomi lived. Stewie loved Naomi with all his heart and spent most of his days following Naomi around, listening to her sing or waiting for her to come home from school. But Stewie annoyed Naomi by constantly getting in the way of whatever she was doing. One day, Naomi went apple picking in the forest behind her house. Stewie thought, the sweetest apples are at the top of the tree. I'll fly up high and get them for my friend Naomi. So Stewie flew to the highest branch and used his beak to pick the apples. Well, the apples fell down on top of Naomi's head, causing her to run for cover. Ack, Stewie, you are a loony tooey, yelled Naomi. Go back to your broadleaf tree. So Stewie flew up to his nest in the broadleaf tree. The following day, Naomi went to gather honey in the forest. Stewie thought, the beehive is hanging far away at the end of a branch. I'll fly over and bring it to the ground for my friend Naomi. So Stewie flew over to the beehive and knocked it to the ground, trying to get the honey out. Well, the bees were quite mad and buzzed all around Naomi, sending her running back to the house. Oh, phooey, Stewie the tooey, exclaimed Naomi. Go back to your broadleaf tree. So Stewie flew up to his nest in the broadleaf tree. The next day, Naomi went to the kitchen to make some cupcakes for the upcoming school talent show. Stewie thought, I'm an excellent baker. I'll fly down and help my friend Naomi. So Stewie flew down to the kitchen, but he slipped and slid across the table, landing in the bowl of flour. The flour splattered all over Naomi's face, making her quite cross. Oh, shooey, Stewie the tooey, snapped Naomi. Go back to your broadleaf tree. So Stewie flew up to his nest in the broadleaf tree, sad that he had upset his friend. Next week, Stewie the Tooey stayed away from Naomi. As the school talent show approached, Stewie watched from his nest atop the broadleaf tree as Naomi practiced her song over and over again. At last, the day of the talent show arrived, and Stewie watched with joy as Naomi got ready and practiced one last time. Stewie flew to the school and settled on a high wooden beam in the auditorium. Student after student came out on stage to perform. Stewie loved it. There were singers, dancers, comedians, and even a magician. When it came time for Naomi to perform, Stewie couldn't contain his excitement. Stewie knew how much Naomi had practiced and how great she sounded. Naomi slowly walked out onto the stage and looked out at the rows and rows and rows and rows of people. Then Naomi froze. She was so nervous, she couldn't produce a single sound. Stewie noticed the confused looks of the people in the audience and knew his friend Naomi was in trouble. Being a Tooey bird, Stewie had a secret weapon. He could imitate any sound he heard, and he knew Naomi's song by heart. In the blink of an eye, Stewie flew from the wooden beam and landed on the stage next to Naomi. Naomi looked over at Stewie and tried to quietly shoo him away. Now is not the time, Stewie. All these people are waiting for me to sing, and I can't get a sound out. Stewie puffed up his chest, took a deep breath, and started to sing. I'm not really going to sing for you guys, right? Naomi's mouth opened in surprise. Stewie smiled proudly and continued to sing. Naomi's eyes opened really wide. Stewie smiled and motioned with his wing for Naomi to come join. Naomi took a deep breath and began to sing. By the end of the song, Naomi was singing at the top of her lungs. Stewie smiled and danced around the stage. The audience burst into cheers for Naomi and Stewie the Tooey. Naomi scooped up Stewie and placed the small bird on her shoulder. Stewie, she said, I am sorry for how I've treated you. I am honored to call you my friend. Stewie proudly burst into a rousing rendition of, and there's going to be a song here. Naomi laughed and clapped her hands. Stewie, you are truly a talented Tooey. From that day forward, Stewie the Tooey could be seen constantly at Naomi's side, singing, dancing, and smiling. There you go. That is Stewie the Tooey. It's still a work in progress. But I wanted you guys to kind of get in on the beginnings of a story. You may have heard that I repeated the names a lot. I kept saying things like broadleaf tree, or Stewie the Tooey, or Naomi. And the reason why is to make a leitmotif, an actual leitmotif, I have to repeat the names and repeat these words over and over again, and then attach sounds to them. So speaking of, I'm going to turn this around here. And you can see a little bit of a setup because I have started to mess around with some ideas for this story. And this is what I do. This is as glamorous as it is, people. I put the paper down. Try not to cut my head off. There we go. I put the paper down. Oh, I forgot the most important thing. It's a pencil. This is like super glamorous life. And then I go through the story word by word. And I mess around with sounds. So let me show you what I found. Forgot one instrument. All right. So I'm thinking that Stewie does 3 different things to Naomi, right? First he annoys her with the apple picking, then with the honey gathering, and then with the baking. And so in between all of that, I was thinking, he kind of needs to be like marching along, or like these little episodes. They need a little bit of a song or a hook. And as you've heard from other stories of mine, like John Henry or Drum Factory, I kind of come up with these little, I call them ditties. They're little songs within the stories. And so I came up with this one for Stewie. Oh, sorry. It's kind of like a little march, but it feels proud, right? And Stewie, to me, is this really tiny dude, but he's like super confident, right? And so I put these instruments together. I have a couple blocks, a couple other plastic blocks here, a bottle, 3 cowbells, a tambourine, an opera gong, a guiro, and a very interesting thing. This is a tiny, tiny, tiny snare drum. And it fits all in here. And I thought it created a little bit of a fun thing. There you go. And then I was thinking, okay, I also need a few other things to happen in these episodes. So, little bit of a groove that can help tie some things together. And then I need to have a little sound for each one of those episodes, the apples, the honey, and the baking, the cupcakes. And so I have to come up with little things for each. And I haven't decided anything yet, but it could be something like this. Stewie was a bright blue chewy bird from New Zealand who lived in a broadleaf tree high above the house where Naomi lived. And so I need something for Naomi. That could be Naomi, Stewie, tree, broadleaf tree could be. There are all these possibilities. And it doesn't matter what I come up with as long as I'm very consistent when I do it. So Stewie was a bright blue chewy bird from New Zealand. I don't know why that's New Zealand. New Zealand. And then there was a girl named Naomi. And Stewie lived in a broadleaf tree. And then one day Naomi went apple picking. And Stewie went after her. He tried to get the apples before Naomi, right? I'm making this story up because I don't know it yet. But this is the process I use. It's not extremely glamorous, but the biggest thing that I pay attention to over and over and over again are the instruments. They are the most important. And as you can hear, most of my instruments are dry. They don't have a lot of resonance. And then I have a resonant one. And when you do mostly dry sounds, it helps not cover my voice. But then every now and then, throwing in a resonant sound really helps the story. That is your lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed Stewie the Tui. A couple more jokes for you. before we tie things up for today. How are A's, like the letter A, how are A's like flowers? Because B's always follow them. Get it? A, B, right? A, yeah, it's an alphabet joke. And this is a great joke because it doesn't even make sense, but it kind of makes sense. Hey, Weber. Yeah, Tango Chloe. Yeah, I was waiting for that. How do elephants smell? Not very good. That's the joke.
I don't get it.
Well, how do elephants smell? Not good. They don't smell good. That's the joke, Oren. It reminds me of one of my favorite jokes from when I was a kid that I found in a Bazooka Joe bubblegum wrapper. And the joke was, why did they call the boy Mike? And the answer was, because that was his name. It's like someone was writing jokes and then just got really tired and decided, you know what? No more jokes. So guys, thank you for coming out. I know there are not a lot of people out today, but to those who have been joining through and through, thank you. I'm going to be making a very big push this week for next week's final story. It'll be the same time, of course, but I'm going to try to change things up a little bit and make it really special and try to get as many people out as possible. We're hitting June. Oren's birthday is next week. Shh, don't tell him. Oh, he's right there. What? Nothing to see here. Yes, Oren is turning 6 next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, you heard me? Very funny. So thank you guys. As usual, I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful week. Happy Memorial Day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next Monday.